It's been what you may call an anus mirabilis for me this year. Quite the opposite of what the Queen did describe some years ago as an anus horribilis. In other words, I just had a wonderful year. See, it all began when Dr. Sotheby, my then podiatrist, dropped a bit of a bombshell. "I am retiring, Mr. Fozzard," he exclaims. "I'm afraid it's going to be our last encounter. But fear not, for I have found you a tremendous replacement. Her name is Mrs. Dunderdale." A woman in podiatry? It's not so unusual. It's fabulous, Mr. Fozzard. Now allow me to shake hands with your feet. So the next thing I knew, I was ringing Mrs. Dunderdale's doorbell for our first appointment. Ding! And when she opened that door, I was completely bowled over. Beautiful looking woman, 70 odd, with lovely flowing hair. Immediately she guided me down to a chair and rested my feet upon a large silk handkerchief, which I thought was a civilized touch. Well, Mr. Fozzard, I take one look at these feet and I say to myself, now here is a man who's on his feet a great deal. Am I right? I said, "You most certainly are, Mrs. Dunderdale. I'm in charge of the soft furnishings department at Matthias and Robinson's." Well, was, till my wife passed away. Well, as soon as you walked in, I picked you as a professional man. I said, well, I prefer a conservative approach to fashion, preppy, but classic. And then she said something that startled even me. Do you know why I got into the profession of podiatry, Mr. Fozzard? So I could kneel at the feet of thousands of men. My husband wouldn't raise a hair. No, I said, is there a, I don't know, Mr. Dunderdale? There was, but much like your wife, he's passed over. She had a lovely cardigan though, I just had to inquire. Say, is that cardigan, I don't know, cashmere? Well, spotted, Mr. Fozzard. Now, if you're really good, I shall introduce you into the world of the metatarsal arch. Our next appointment, she says, "Good news, Mr. Fozzard. We seem to have cracked the tinea podias. Not a trace of it left. I think this calls for a sherry refill. Are you off into a hurry?" I said, no, of course not. Why? Well, we seem to have a little bit of time on our hands. I was wondering if I could prevail you to try a pair of booties. Think of them as a present for you, Mr. Fozzard. I said, "Oh, Mrs. Dunderdale, I could not possibly accept. There must be some other way I can repay this." Well, there is some way. You see, years of bending over men's feet have resulted in an intermittently painful condition of the lower back, which I'm sure you have the power to alleviate. I do, Mrs. Dunderdale? Yes, you do, Mr. Fozzard. Now, I'm going to place one pillow here, my head, one pillow here, my abdomen. I'm going to slowly lie and I want you to step on my lower back. Should I take the booties off, Mrs. Dunderdale? No, keep the booties on. Their texture just makes them ideal for the purpose. Oh, that's it, Mr. Fozzard, that's it. I'm anxious not to hurt you, Mrs. Dunderdale. Oh, have no worry on that regard. Trample away. I said I feel like one of those French peasants treading on all those grapes, and she goes, yes, that's it, Mr. Fozzard, yes! Our next appointment takes on a very similar tone. She sits me down in her study, pours me the glass of sherry and says, "May I make a suggestion? How would you like all of your sessions for completely free?" How would you like that arrangement? I said, "Come again?" That's right, no charge at all. At one point I suggested to Mrs. Dunderdale, people may find this situation peculiar, particularly in this small town. Well, people would be wrong. See, you and I are enthusiasts, Mr. Fozzard, and there just isn't enough enthusiasm in the world these days. Now, those Wellingtons are awfully comfy. I would like you, in your own time, very gently, to mark the time on my bottom. But it's always the same now. Occasionally she'll put on some music, but it's such a drove. And nowadays the basic podiatrist gets pushed to one side, and if I want so much as a basic foot alignment, I really have to nail her down. Which I confess, she quite likes. We're still Mr. Fozzard and Mrs. Dunderdale. I haven't told anyone at work yet. Not my lesson there. Anyway, people keep telling me how well I look these days. I suppose there's a word for what we're doing, but I just skirt around it.